Everybody. Good afternoon. I'm Steve Gregorian, President and CEO of the Detroit Economic Club. Welcome to today's meeting. It is a big birthday year for the DEC. 90 years of incredible speakers and networking, and that tradition will continue today, Valentine's Day. I want to especially welcome our DEC members and give them some love. If you're not a DEC member yet, just give me 10 seconds to convince you. Your next job, client, prospect, friend is right here in this room. We'd love to have you join. It's easy to do, econclub.org. In fact, if you want to do it today before you leave, just stop by registration and we're going to give you a free event ticket to use over the next few months. As we get started, I would just ask you to kindly silence your cell phones so we don't disturb the program. And if you've been with us before, you know we always begin with a pledge and a prayer. So I would ask you to stand and join me as we honor our country with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, and kindly remain standing as our invocation will be delivered today by Glenn McIntosh, who is the Senior VP for Student Affairs and Chief Diversity Officer at Oakland University. Glenn?
Be still. Know, sense the presence of the Lord in our presence. And it is in God that we trust. May we all bow our heads. Heavenly Creator, at the dawn of time, your word spoke life into existence. Every atom, every soul woven with your divine essence. Bless the Detroit Economic Club as they convene brothers and sisters to develop a common vision, common agenda, common plan to unite and execute. Today we come before you with hearts blazing, grateful for the chance to gather, to seek, to find, to express your word, your will, your ways. We lift up the Honorable Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Oh Lord, grant her your wisdom, your discernment, your power as she speaks and addresses Michigan's opportunities, challenges, dreams, and aspirations. May your spirit, oh Lord, guide her as she leads with high esteem. Grant us, oh Lord, the grace to seek your will in every decision, every action, on every hill or in every valley. May we work together in unity and in a spirit of love and respect, reflecting your goodness, your mercy, your grace, your peace. Almighty God, ordain the city of Detroit, the state of Michigan, and our great United States of America with your favor, your blessings, your prosperity. May we all shine as beacons of freedom, of justice, hope, equality, and light. In the Creator's great name, collectively, we say, amen.
Thank you, Glenn. You may all be seated. Glenn, forget about the Oakland University gig. You're now our full-time invocator. Thank you. All right, a couple of special thank yous. Thank you to Detroit Public TV for live streaming our program today. And many thanks to WJR, who's doing their Focus Show live right downstairs. You'll see them at lunch. It's a thrill to have them with us. We've got students here today, as we always do, courtesy of our generous corporate sponsors. I want to take a moment and let you know they had a chance to meet with Governor Whitmer, and we're very grateful before we came in here today. We've got students from Northwestern High School in Detroit, compliments of Jason Tinsley and JP Morgan Chase. Thank you. Lake Orion High School, actually, just if you wouldn't mind, just hold the applause till I finish. Lake Orion High School, thanks to Fifth Third Bank. River Rouge High School, thanks to Krista, Yasmin, and Citizens Bank. Academy of Sacred Heart in Bloomfield Hills, thank you. Blue Cross Blue Shield. And Schoolcraft College, thanks to Lori and the Rush Group. Now we can give the sponsors and students a round of applause. Couple quick things. We're loading up our season lineup. If you are a politics fan, Join us on February 26th. We will host Senator Joe Manchin. And if you're a Red Wings fan who are rocketing towards a playoff spot, a little blip in the third period last night. Tim Cott, I know you were watching that against Edmonton, but they're going to be with us just 2 days later on February 28th. So tons more on the website, tons more to come. Exciting stuff. Get your tickets before they sell out. I also always want to thank our sponsors and partners. They are the reason we can gather here today. Without them, we would not be here. So thank you, thank you, thank you to all of our sponsors and partners. And finally, 90 years of speakers I mentioned, and those speakers tell the history of our country. Today, Governor Whitmer joins a distinguished list of Michigan governors who have addressed the DEC 48 separate occasions, along with 22 governors of other U.S. states. I'm not sure there's another club in the United States that has that record. And those names of governors include recognizable people such as Romney, Milliken, Rockefeller, Bush, and Clinton. So today, we're pleased to add Governor Whitmer as our 71st governor to address the DEC. Congratulations to Governor Whitmer, and thanks for being with us. All right, it's time to get the show on the road. We're going to put our presiding officer to work. David Lewis is the president of AT&T of Michigan. He is a DEC board member, a great friend to me personally and to the DEC. He's a strong supporter of our city, region, and state, and a fierce advocate for bridging the digital divide in our state. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome David Lewis.
Well, good afternoon. Oh, we got to do better than that. Good afternoon. There's no snow on the ground. If that's not a reason to be happy, and happy Valentine's Day. So, gentlemen, if you're not sending your flowers, got news for you. It's too late. So you're going to have to figure something out after this, but good luck to you. But for those of you who did remember, and for those of you celebrate today with your loved ones, because it is a special day. Thank you, Steve, for that introduction. It was a pleasure to join. It is a pleasure to join each of you here today. So at this time, I would like to introduce our special guest. We're very honored to have Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer joining us today. A lifelong Michigander, Governor Gretchen Whitmer is focused on getting things done that will make a real difference in people's lives. She signed over 1,250 bipartisan bills, enacted 5 balanced budgets, and paid down $18 billion of debt. Since taking office, she's worked across the aisle with private sector partners to shore up Michigan's economic development toolkit, expand workforce development programs, and bring supply chains and jobs back home from overseas. By lowering the cost of job training and higher education, cutting red tape for permitting and redevelopment, and competing with other states and nations, Governor Whitmer has made Michigan one of America's best states to do business, attract investments from around the world, and maintain a strong credit rating. Whether you're an entrepreneur or chasing your dream, a high-tech manufacturer seeking a growing ecosystem of advanced manufacturing, or a corporation planning your next expansion, Governor Whitmer is focused on building a Michigan with a place for you. Governor Whitmer has always been supportive of the Detroit Economic Club. She was kind enough to visit us when she ran both terms as governor. And she was our last speaker in 2020 before the pandemic. So ladies and gentlemen, please give this governor a warm Detroit Economic Club greeting. Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Well, thank you. I am so grateful to be here with all of you. So hello to my friends here at the Detroit Economic Club and all the students who are joining us today as well. It was a treat to be able to spend a little bit of time with you before we came out here. I'm excited to be here to talk a little bit about our shared vision for a more prosperous, growing Michigan where everyone can make it, no matter who they are or where they live. We have a very special guest who also is going to be joining us for a conversation here on the stage. So I'm going to keep my comments brief because I know everyone's very excited to hear from her. But before I dig in, I want to thank Board Chair Sandy Pierce, Presiding Officer David Lewis, President and CEO Steve Gregorian, and all the DEC officers, board, and staff. Last week, I released my executive budget proposal for fiscal year 2025. It is a balanced budget that shores up our state's strong financial position and delivers on issues that will make a real difference in people's lives. We all see the challenges that Michigan faces right now. They can be summarized in a few simple questions. How can we diversify and grow Michigan's economy amid the ongoing transition that's happening in the auto industry? How can we improve our education system to build a skilled workforce and people who are ready for jobs of the future? And what can we do now that'll help us get there on both fronts? My budget and the work that we did in 2023 and will do in 2024 will answer those questions. First, we've got to be fiscally responsible. I am proud that we have paid down over $18 billion of debt since I took office. We brought our rainy day fund to an all-time historic high of over $2 billion. We even created another rainy day fund for our schools with $500 million in it to secure the future of our children's education. We got here by collaborating, Republicans and Democrats, on 5 balanced budgets that didn't raise taxes by a dime and still were able to make long overdue, unprecedented investments. My 6th budget plans to keep that trend going. It's balanced, it makes another deposit into our rainy day fund, and it doesn't have to raise taxes to do any of this good work. And best of all, because of the smart financial decision to pay down certain debt early from MIPSers, our retirement program for educators, we have freed up $670 million to use in this year's budget and hundreds of millions of dollars annually for years to come without shortchanging the retirees. And I am also going to share with you that I was in New York City last year with our state treasurer, who I just had the honor of introducing to our special guest today, another woman first in many regards, Rachel Eubanks, and we secured not just an upgrade in our credit rating over the last 5 years, but we are in a solid position even with $1 billion of tax relief that we got done last year. So we have momentum and we've got resources. What are we going to do with those two things? Well, one of the best returns on investment is education. There's no silver bullet in the policy world, but lifelong education is about as close as you can get in terms of a great investment. I'm proud that my budget will deliver on what I'm calling the Michigan Guarantee. It is a simple promise that has huge implications. Every child in Michigan deserves a free public education from pre-K through community college. We know that kids that go to pre-K arrive at kindergarten more prepared to learn. They have higher literacy rates, better test scores, and are more likely to graduate and attend college. Investments in early childhood pay off lifelong dividends in health and wealth. We know that students who get an associate's degree after high school or a certificate from a community college earn $23,000 a year more than high school graduates that don't have that additional skill set. We know that so many of the jobs created building electric cars or chips or clean energy will require some form of higher education or certification. And that's not just true in these industries, it's true across the board. So let's deliver on the Michigan Guarantee to keep the American dream alive here in Michigan. If we do, the jobs we're competing with other states for and other nations for to bring back to Michigan will have a stronger base and compelling opportunity to draw on our own talent, grow our communities, small towns and big cities. And we're not stopping there. Our talent efforts will continue with funding for programs like Going Pro, registered apprenticeships, and the bipartisan Michigan Reconnect, which so many people in this room helped us design. We have an all-of-the-above strategy when it comes to developing our most precious and productive resource, which is our people. The Michigan Guarantee connects to the work that we are doing to make sure that Michigan is the best state to have a good life at a great cost of living. We know that costs are top of mind right now for so many people. And that's why we quintupled the working families tax credit last year, putting hundreds of dollars back in the pockets of 700,000 Michigan families. One of the best things about this particular tax policy is that it incentivizes work and supports households where half of the Michigan children live. So checks are hitting people's mailboxes this week, and we know that this kind of a common sense tax break will lift tens of thousands out of poverty. In my budget, we also propose a caregiver tax credit for people who are caring for an aging or elderly parent or a sick child. You can save up to $5,000 a year if you are one of those incredible caregivers across our state. Both these tax savings will make it easier for people to care for their loved ones while providing for themselves. Another area where we are proposing to ensure that we continue doing the good work that we've started is around housing. And we can help people save money around housing. No matter what part of the state I'm in, this is a top issue. There's a nationwide housing shortage, and Michigan's no exception. We have old housing stock. Over half of our homes are over 50 years old. As a 52-year-old, there's nothing wrong with being over 50. But we need new housing as well. Too many Michiganders are paying too much for rent or a mortgage. Our response, as I said in the State of the State, will be simple. Build, baby, build. Let's go. Since I took office, we have been headed in the right direction. We've built or rehabbed about 34,000 units and supporting 20,000 good-paying jobs along the way. In the next fiscal year, the Michigan State Housing Development Authority will be using their existing loan dollars and bond money to invest $1.4 billion to build or rehabilitate almost 10,000 more homes. That is the largest investment in housing by tenfold in just the last 10 years. Thanks to Michigan's effective fiscal management, they can build or refurbish these 10,000 homes without a single dollar additional from the budget that I've just introduced. But we will continue to support Michigan's efforts in the budget with targeted investments in site readiness and community revitalization to make sure that our cities and towns are better places to live, work, and invest. And finally, I want to talk about economic development. In 2021, we brought Republicans and Democrats and the private sector partners together to shore up Michigan's economic development toolkit. We wanted to make sure that everyone can make it, can be successful here in Michigan. We were falling behind other states and fighting with one arm tied behind our backs. And now we are 2 mittens up, right? Our economic development tools have helped us land billions of dollars in investment and thousands of jobs. But we need to continue evolving. We need better, more targeted tools to help us keep winning. In my State of the State address, I proposed a number of things: an R&D tax credit to spur research and development, the Hire Michigan Fund to lower payroll taxes, because the more you hire in Michigan, the more you should be able to save in Michigan, and a single simplified category for Renaissance zones to create jobs in underinvested areas in our state, and a new innovation fund to invest in scalable, high-growth startups. These 4 tools would supercharge our economic growth, but I need your help to get them across the finish line. These should be bipartisan efforts and need to be in order to hit my desk. And it will help every one of us in the work that we're doing when we're successful here. So I'm asking that you reach out to your legislators and voice your support for these measures, because we got to get this done. And I'm confident that our future is bright. We are building that future, and it will take every single one of us to do our part. Luckily, I know we're all on Team Michigan. I'm grateful to have great partners in our legislature, in our congressional delegation, and in the Biden-Harris administration. And that brings me to our special guest. She's a dynamic leader that helped unleash the American economy. Under her tenure, unemployment is at record lows, wage growth and consumer confidence are up, factories are getting built at record pace, and America is leading the world. In other words, she is a badass. She eats, sleeps, and breathes economics. After earning her PhD in economics from Yale, only one of a handful of women in her class, she entered academia before answering the call of public service. This is a woman with a resume that is long, but to highlight a few things, she was chair of the Council of Economic Advisors for President Clinton, president of the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, member, vice chair, and chair of the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, and as of January 26, 2021, the Treasury Secretary of the United States. She has an incredible amount of responsibility on her shoulders, an incredible breadth of experience, and just one word can change global markets, so she has to be even more careful than I do. But I'm excited that Secretary Janet Yellen is here with us today for a conversation about small business, workforce development, and all things money. She is a strong leader with decades of experience who has been instrumental in powering our world-leading economic recovery. And I'm really excited to speak with her today. So please join me in welcoming Secretary Janet Yellen.
Thank you so much, Donna. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Madam Secretary, welcome to Michigan.
I'm delighted to be in Michigan. Thank you so much for having me.
We're all very pleased to have you. I know that there's a lot of excitement from folks here who have come to watch this conversation, and just excited to hear from you. I think you're going to kick us off, but
Yes, I'd like to start by asking you a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you know, President Biden and I are very proud of the Inflation Reduction Act. This was a seminal piece of legislation, the most historic legislation in our country's history to address climate change and clean energy. And I think it has especially important implications for Michigan. So my question to you is, how's it going? How are you finding implementation? Are there challenges? How is it going here in Michigan?
Well, first, I'll start by saying we're so grateful for the incredible investment that has been made at the federal level. This, you know, between the administration and our great congressional delegation, we have been fortunate to be able to draw in resources into Michigan and supplement all the work that we've been focused on doing. Implementation, though, is the name of the game, and making sure that we are moving swiftly and able to distill all of the requirements to draw in the dollars. I think we've been moving fast. My direction to our team was, I want Michigan to pull in more money than any other state per capita. Move fast and let's do this. And we know we've got to outcompete other states. We know that we've been able to secure incredible resources when it comes to high-speed internet, which we saw during the pandemic, how crucial that was. Yes. And I think Michigan has been, we are the fourth highest investment in the country for our efforts on high-speed internet. We've won a lot of big battery projects recently and electric vehicle production, which is so important to the Michigan economy and as we think about the future of manufacturing. So we're really excited about this opportunity. We're already seeing these resources coming in, and we're grateful to the partners at the federal level who've helped us when there's been gray areas to try to navigate.
Well, we appreciate the opportunity to partner with you.
Absolutely. So now I'm going to ask you a question. So, let's talk about inflation. There's new economic data out today on inflation, and I know that you are always looking very carefully at all of the data. I know you've been on the road speaking with American workers and business leaders. Just wondering, what is your perspective on kind of the state of the U.S. economy for both families and businesses?
So overall, my assessment is that the state of the U.S. economy is very strong. We have a labor market that is the envy of the world. We have a string of national unemployment readings that are under 4%. For the longest string of time, in 50 years. People can feel confident about the job market. And economic growth is also strong. In spite of the fact that the economy had recovered and the job market was operating at something close to full employment, we still enjoyed 3.1% growth last year. And productivity growth is improving as well. And that's important over time if we can keep that up for living standards. Now, inflation, there was a report yesterday on inflation. It was a tad higher than most people were expecting. The market responded to that. But I think it is a tremendous mistake to focus on minor fluctuations in and to fail to see the longer term and bigger trend. And the trend here is that inflation is moving decisively down. We did have a burst of inflation. Really, it rose to levels we hadn't seen since the late 70s or early 80s. And Americans saw the cost of things they buy, whether it was new or used cars, gasoline, especially surged after Russia's invasion of Ukraine, huge demand for housing. Housing costs went up. Inflation has now fallen almost to levels that are consistent with the Fed's objective. And we've had a 2/3 decline in inflation. I believe in the majority of gas stations across the country, the price of gasoline is now it averages under $3. It's down $1.90 off its high. The prices of familiar goods, we were shocked to see eggs rise in price. Eggs have fallen back to pretty close to pre-pandemic levels. New and used car prices and truck prices have declined as well, televisions. So some prices are falling. Inflation overall is coming back down to normal levels where it's not an issue to most people. And most importantly, wages have gone up, and they've gone up quite a lot. And they've gone up especially large amounts for lower income workers. The same report that showed a tad higher inflation that was expected showed that average hourly earnings adjusted for inflation for all private sector workers went up over the last year by 1.3%. And for blue-collar workers, they were up 1.6% just over the last year. I think the statistic that I find useful to summarize how things have gone is that for the median worker in the United States, if you compare today with 2019, the typical worker can buy exactly the same basket of goods and services. Their wages have gone up to permit that, and they have $1,400 left over on top of that to spend or save. And, you know, while Americans have been in many surveys down on the economy, and I think because of inflation, when you ask Americans, there was a survey just, I think, week before last by Axios. People were asked about their personal financial situation, and over 60% said they felt good. They felt very good about it, and they think 2024 will be a better year than 2023. And I would agree. And as inflation has come down and wages have gone up, we really are seeing in surveys, and of course the University of Michigan survey is one of the most important measures of consumer sentiment. That has moved sharply higher in recent months, and I think Americans are beginning to feel better about the economy. Importantly, actually, if you compare the performance of the United States with other countries that went through the same impact of the, pandemic, our economy has grown more, inflation has come down more, and wages adjusted for inflation have risen more than in any other advanced country that suffered what we have. And of course, the pandemic was traumatic in so many different ways for American families that still, I think, weighs on their views about the uncertainties of life. Middle-class families have had a lot of burdens, a lot of things they're worried about. They've seen over decades, especially for people without a college education, in many parts of the country, jobs have disappeared. Childcare is expensive, education is expensive, they're worried about healthcare. So, it's not that there are serious problems that policymakers need to address to support middle-class families so that they can enjoy better lives. And the Biden administration is focused on that. I was in Pittsburgh yesterday and visited the Allegheny healthcare system, where they're making remarkable investments, partly using federal funds to improve medical care and bring down healthcare costs. And, just in the last couple of years, President Biden has managed to bring down premiums under the Affordable Care Act that are lowering healthcare costs for many Americans. Coverage is increased. 8 million more Americans are covered today than were covered in 2020. And for the first time, Medicare is able now to negotiate about drug prices with the major pharmaceutical companies. And drug prices are not going to be allowed to rise more quickly than inflation. And this ability to negotiate is not only going to bring down drug costs for American families, it's also benefiting the U.S. government by controlling Medicare costs. And of course, for seniors, the cost of insulin has now been capped. And this coming year, there will be an overall cap for Medicare recipients on the total amount of out-of-pocket spending for prescription drugs. So we're making progress, and I think the Inflation Reduction Act is going to, and we're already seeing it, result in a boom in investment in clean energy. And that's going to mean less exposure to what happens in Russia or the Middle East for oil prices, so greater independence, more dependence on the sun and the wind and less on geopolitics, and it's going to bring down energy costs. So, of course, there's more work to do, but, and we now have important legislation that is really investing in America and in the people of America, bringing back manufacturing in key sectors like semiconductors and clean energy, investing in research and development to allow American innovation to flourish, and importantly, good jobs being created all over the country, not just on the coasts, in parts of the country that have really seen a dearth of economic opportunity. So I feel good about the state of the economy now, and I'm optimistic looking forward.
Excellent. I think everyone's happy to hear that.
So We are seeing a surge in investment in manufacturing in many parts of the country. And I guess my question for you would be, do you think that the Midwest is going to become the future hub of advanced manufacturing? And if it is, this requires partnerships between government and the private sector. And is the state of Michigan working to try to incentivize the private sector? And do you need some help from the federal government, or is what we've done enough? How can we help you?
Yes. Now I'll ask my question of you. It's great to see so much investment in manufacturing. I think during the pandemic, we all saw very clearly it's in our national security to make sure that we are manufacturing in this country. Some of the things that I talked about with my budget that I've just introduced is sharpening Michigan's toolkit to make sure that we are incentivizing R&D here, that we are a place where you invest in your employees, you get some benefits. An innovation fund, expanding Renaissance zones. These are all strategic ways I think that we can ensure that manufacturing that is really growing continues to do so. But I would argue, and I think all my colleagues in this area, whether it's Mike DeWine in Ohio all the way to Tim Walz in Minnesota, recognize that the Midwest, this is a great strength of ours historically, and we're all focused, and we're working together in some ways, but certainly partnership with the federal government's been really crucial in that as we think about everything from Hemlock Semiconductor and hyperpure polysilicon, which is a foundational element in so many solar panels, to semiconductors or the auto industry, or Whirlpool always pointed out, we need semiconductors too. It's not just the auto industry. So all of these, I think, are work together, and our work is crucial. And it's a homeland security issue. And so continued resources and favorable interpretations out of the federal government are great ways that we could work together and would be helpful to the Michigan economy. All right, time is running out, so I want to ask a quick question. The president signed that historic legislation as part of his Investing in America agenda, and I know that you helped develop and inform a lot of the work that they've done. The infrastructure law, the CHIPS and Science Act, the IRA. As we in Michigan are thinking about how we benefit from that, are there things that we should be looking to or expanding on as we think about the president's Investing in America agenda?
So I see Michigan as a state that is absolutely perfectly positioned to benefit from all of the legislation that's been passed, particularly the Inflation Reduction Act. You have a rich history of manufacturing and innovation, and we're really already seeing a boom that I think has been triggered, especially by the Inflation Reduction Act, and Michigan is benefiting from it. So we're trying to keep track of what the new investments are that this legislation is stimulating. And my staff told me that there are according to their estimates, $22 billion in commitments here in Michigan to invest in 21st century industries, including $18 billion in electric vehicles and batteries, $2 billion in clean power, $1 billion in clean energy manufacturing, close to $1 billion in biomanufacturing, semiconductors and electronics, and heavy industry as well. So I think, Michigan is very well positioned to benefit from these programs. And I guess over the last several years, there are other ways, I think, in which the federal government agenda has benefited Michigan. I'd start with the American Rescue Plan, that first big package that was passed when President Biden became president. We were very worried at the time about the impact of the pandemic on the budgets of state and local governments. And, you know, we saw after the financial crisis, states are hard hit. If you lack revenue, unlike the federal government, you typically have to cut expenditures. And after that financial crisis, it took a very long time for state and local government employment to regain pre-crisis levels. So $350 billion went out to state and local governments and tribal governments, and Michigan received $6.5 billion. There's a state small business credit initiative that gave Michigan close to $250 billion, and also money for high-speed internet. And so hopefully those funds have been useful. I know I've heard many examples of very good projects. There will be roughly $11 billion in spending in Michigan under the new bipartisan infrastructure law. And a lot of the spending, I believe, is really creating good jobs, and not just for people with college educations, but for people with high school education that have really seen a dearth of opportunities. So I think that those are some of the ways.
A lot of powerful tools that have been given to us from the feds and great partnerships, so we appreciate that. I think Steve is going to come out, or David's going to come out and join us. Hi, David.
Let's give him a round of applause, please. You're not off the hook yet. There's a couple of questions from the audience I'd like to field. And Governor, we're going to start with you as it relates to the budget. Let's dig a little deeper into your proposed budget. How do we expand services, health, education, housing, et cetera, without raising taxes?
So we've been able to do it for the last 5 years, and we're going to keep doing it. One of the things I'm really proud of in this budget, and I mentioned Rachel Eubanks, our state treasurer, Rachel, our first woman state treasurer, who I had the opportunity to introduce the two, and Rachel was so excited to meet you. Anyway. You know, we have, I think, really seen that Michigan's economy has come roaring back from the pandemic. And certainly during the pandemic, all those resources, Madam Secretary, that came via ARPA were crucial to us meeting the needs of Michigan people, but also making the investments that were long overdue. And because of that, in conjunction with a growing economy, we're in a really strong position. As I mentioned, Rachel and I went to New York and met with rating agencies this last year and told the great story of what's happening here in Michigan. Our credit rating is strong, and we've got these historic highs in terms of rainy day funds, and so our ability to show we've been pragmatic and still have the resources to invest in the education of our people and the skills attainment and workforce development, I think speaks to how strong this economy has come back. And I know lots of people in this room are seeing it. Lots of people in this room are driving it with your investments here in Michigan. But it is incredible to be able to say when we have a strong economy, we really do see how all boats are rising and we can make these long overdue investments without asking for across the board tax increases. So I'm proud of that, but absolutely determined to make sure that we keep going in that direction.
Outstanding, thank you. Okay, for sake of time, we'll go to one more and then we'll go to the lightning round. So this is to both of you. My final question is, how are companies upskilling their workforces to meet growing industries of the future? Madam Secretary, we'll start with you.
Well, workforce development is critically important, and with respect to the federal government, we've, in the $350 billion that I mentioned that we've distributed through state and local fiscal recovery funds, there's a lot of flexibility in how the money can be used, but we've particularly emphasized workforce development programs as being very valuable, along with affordable housing, as being a very good way to use those funds. And what we try to do is look at best practice, what's working, what's not working, and 3 workforce strategies we see as very effective are registered apprenticeships, community college programs, and supportive services that lets people take advantage of these programs. I've been visiting in recent months quite a few workforce development programs that involve partnerships between local governments, community colleges, bring in businesses, and something else that is really stimulating a lot of collaboration on workforce development is the Inflation Reduction Act. The subsidies, the tax subsidies for firms for most of the tax credits are 5 times as large if the standards with respect to pay and apprenticeships are observed. And so firms have to pay prevailing pay in the jobs that are being supported by these tax credits. And that's really designed to make sure that what we're creating here are good jobs. And apprenticeship programs need to be brought into play as well. So this is really stimulating a lot of additional workforce development. Involves unions often as well.
Great, thank you. Governor?
A lot of what Secretary Yellen just said are things that we've been working on here in Michigan as well. The registered apprenticeships, expanding access to community college. It is incredible to meet someone who went and got a degree or a certificate because of the Michigan Reconnect, which we created last term with a Republican legislature. We looked at, with the business community right at the table and helping drive a lot of this, looked at what they were doing in Tennessee and made it a Michigan-based program. So we improved on what they were doing and made it our own. And to meet someone who's gone through it, who didn't think that they had the ability to afford a skill set and to now be in a better paying job, it's one of the coolest things that I get to do as I travel the state, to see the people that have benefited from our work. So that's just one example. The Michigan Achievement Scholarship is another way to bring down the cost of post-high school endeavor, and I think guaranteeing 2 years of community college for all, I think is another way that we can expand those workforce development programs.
Wonderful, thank you. So, Madam Secretary, although the state of the economy is serious and we take it serious, we like to have a little fun too. So we're going to do a couple lightning round questions for the both of you. Just about 30-second response if you could for both of you. So I'll start with you in the first question. Person you would like to have lunch with, dead or alive, and they cannot be a family member.
I would choose John Maynard Keynes, who
Absolutely.
he changed the way all of us understand business cycles, public policy, and financial markets. And a long time ago, Richard Nixon said, "We're all Keynesians now." And I think this is really a bipartisan understanding that he really had deep insights into how economies work.
Great. Governor, same question.
I was going to say Ulysses S. Grant, but I had 10 minutes with the secretary before we came out here, and only 10 minutes, so I'm going to say Janet Yellen.
You were very kind.
That is great. So we're just going to skip to the last one because it's the most important, and we've got a little bit of time left. Advice to your 25-year-old self, Madam Secretary.
Well, I think at that point in life, it's important to figure out what are you really passionate about, what are you interested in, what do you want to devote your work life to, and to try to do it, and to affiliate yourself with an organization, whether it's a firm or a nonprofit or university, whose mission you deeply identify with, that you're proud to say, I work for this company or organization with people that you like, trust, and admire. And you shouldn't be afraid to try new things, make changes in your life, learn new things along the way, and deepen your knowledge and interests.
Thank you. Governor, bring us home.
Well, two things immediately come to mind. Sunscreen. Grew up in the 70s and 80s and 90s, so. But I think, I love what you said, take risk, experience new things. And then a woman gave me some great advice when I was running for governor, and it was just show up as you are. And I'm grateful that there's so many women who have come before me that make it easier to do that. And I think the first always had to calculate how everyone else would be interpreted, knowing that it would impact all the others that would follow. And I'm grateful for your leadership and for all the incredible things that you've done for our country. And for me as a female leader, I have personally benefited from it. I know my daughters have as well. So thank you.
Thank you so much,
Outstanding.
Governor. Thank you.
Let's give our distinguished guest, Madam Secretary, Governor Whitmer, thank you for your time, your energy, and all that you do. Outstanding.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Steve, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, David. Wow, thank you so much, Secretary Yellen and Governor Whitmer. We are so honored you chose the DEC for your remarks and presentation. Thank you. David Lewis, thank you for your important role today and your outstanding support of the club and me personally. Thank you. You're a good friend. Ladies and gentlemen, just one instruction. We hope you'll join us for a strolling lunch right downstairs in the atrium afterwards. We're going to ask you to please exit out these doors here. These are secured, and we will see you downstairs. Take a look at WJR Radio down there. You'll see a lot of the folks that are being interviewed. One final request. Tell your friends and colleagues to join the Detroit Economic Club. We're a really cool group of people. On time, every time, this meeting of the Detroit Economic Club is now adjourned. Thank you, everybody.